Hallo YouTube und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Our Life Beginnings and Always. Ich habe es richtig gemacht. Wir machen heute weiter mit einem neuen Moment und zwar mit Drive. Und heute steht wieder die Frage im Raum, kriegen wir heute einen Antrag? Ich möchte, aber ich glaube, es wäre realistisch, wenn nicht. Aber ich möchte. Wenn ich möchte, dann möchte ich. So. Und Chat ist natürlich auch wieder am Start. Aber um keine Zeit zu verlieren, fangen wir einfach direkt an. Yes. So. Okay. Ich bin irgendwie... Also wirklich, je näher wir dem Ende des Spiels kommen, desto aufgeregter bin ich jedes Mal, wenn ich irgendwie einen neuen Moment starte. Aber ja. Ich hoffe, tontechnisch passt alles. Sollte. Und ja, fange ich jetzt an. Oh mein Gott. Okay. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. Das ist auch das Geilste, oder? Wenn man sich einfach verabredet und nichts tut. Oh, Chat. Ich weiß, das gehört jetzt nicht zur Aufnahme, aber ich habe gestern Videos gesehen. Reels habe ich gesehen. Und da haben Freundinnen einfach zusammen gelesen, das gleiche Buch, auch gleichzeitig angefangen und halt immer so Kapitel für Kapitel und sowas. Und das war voll toll. Das war voll toll, ich will auch so. So, okay. Das war kurz mein... dass ich da gerne auch sowas hätte. Ich habe meinen Tab verloren. Okay, the two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you had planned for the summer. You were sitting next to him. Kann man auch auf ihm drauf sitzen? Wir sind fast 3 Minuten in der Aufnahme und ich will erstmal auf ihm drauf sitzen. Auch schön. He sat on one couch while you sat on your own. Warum nicht auf ihm drauf? Da bricht doch gleich der Alert ab. Ich kann das nicht mehr. Ich kann das nicht mehr. Oh no. Von mir ist alles wieder abgebrochen. Aber ich bin noch da. Nein, selbst mein Scheibenkleister. Mali, vielen, vielen Dank für deinen Raid und herzlich willkommen, Raider. Bei mir bricht jetzt gerade alles ab. Well, kennt man doch. Wenn ein Raid bei mir reinkommt, bricht erstmal alles ab. Vor allem, wenn ich hier erstmal plädiere, dass ich auf ihm drauf sitzen möchte. Also Applaus für alle. So, ich hoffe, es funktioniert jetzt bei mir. Es hat sich gerade alles getrennt. Oh nein! Oh, das kann doch nicht wahr sein. Das ist doch jetzt nicht die Möglichkeit. Okay, also Aufnahme. Ich bin gleich wieder da. Ich muss kurz pausieren, weil sonst... ich muss erstmal hier mit meinem Internet stinkern. YouTube, ich bin wieder da. Hat ein bisschen gedauert, aber ich bin wieder da. So, wir waren jetzt hier. Wir chillen mit Cove auf der Couch. So, wir haben die Möglichkeit, nebeneinander zu sitzen. Wir haben die Möglichkeit, auf getrennten Couches zu sitzen. Sofas. Also er auf einer, wir auf einer. Wir haben auch die Möglichkeit, dass er auf einer Couch sitzt und wir auf einer Couch liegen. Wir haben auch die Möglichkeit... Oh, ich habe das letzte noch gar nicht gesehen. Wir haben aber auch die Möglichkeit, im Prinzip auf der Couch zu liegen, während er halt auf der gleichen Couch sitzt, aber wahrscheinlich so mit unseren Beinen über seinem Schoß oder so. Oder wir können natürlich auch kuscheln und das machen wir natürlich. Wir werden halt, hallo, wir sind allein zu Hause. Da wird gekuschelt. You were cuddling on the couch. He had an arm loosely slung around your shoulders and his head dipped down against you while you were nestled against his side, enjoying the comfort of his company. Also, so. Oh, warum kann ich mir das bei dem aber irgendwie nicht so wirklich vorstellen? The day dragged on and you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You had almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Oh, hello, Cove. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled his own phone from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had adjusted you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again.
Oh.
It's my mom. Cove waved his phone in the air, giving you a small smile. I'm gonna take this. I'll be right back. He carefully nudged you to move. You made a small noise. Why do you have to leave for that? Oh, so sind wir jetzt aber nicht. Sure. Okay. It's your mom. Can't I hear it? Hallo, Privatsphäre. You held onto him to keep him there. Ich glaube, wir werden so. You made a small noise. Come on, Jenny. I have to take this. He poked you again and finally, with a groan, you relented and let him get up. Ich glaube tatsächlich, dass das sogar sehr realistisch ist, wenn man so extremst müde ist und halt wirklich sehr runtergekommen und dann jemand diese komfortable Position, die man eingenommen hat und diese Atmosphäre einfach stört, egal wer es ist. Ich glaube, das wäre dann so ein bisschen dann ist man halt so ein bisschen so und geht so, Hallöchen, guten Morgen, wie geht's dir? So, he got to his feet and stretched out, answering the call and holding the phone to his ear as he headed off. Hey mom, what's up? Tell her I said hi, don't keep me waiting long. You blew him a kiss. You waved him goodbye. Nee, wir sagen schon so richte Grüße aus. Tell her I said hi. He turned to give you a nod, smiling as he walked backwards towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and you sank back onto the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Your mind drifted away from thoughts of Cove and his phone call with all the many ways your device could distract you. It was an effective enough way to kill the time, and you had managed to do various little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. He gave you a smile as he approached, so you figured the conversation couldn't have gone too bad. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. He crossed his arms against the top corner of the couch, resting on them while bending forward to lightly kiss the top of your head. Ich kann mit denen nicht, die sind mir zu süß. Ich muss das jetzt nochmal. Oh.
Hey.
I'm back. Okay, kann er nicht irgendwie so machen? So, I'm back. Mann. You gazed up at him fondly. You put a hand over his. You stretched up to hold his face. You tilted your head and gave him a small kiss. Wir nutzen die Zeit, dass wir allein zu Hause sind, okay? You tilted your head and gave him a small kiss. He met your lips with his, closing his eyes and letting you kiss him longer than the one he had given just prior. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, just... He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but you couldn't imagine why.
Fine.
It's fine. Not anything to worry about. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try and meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile, trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. Wann Dark Romance? Dark Romance lese ich. Dark Romance lese ich nur. Weil nicht jeder kommt damit zurecht. Und da möchte ich natürlich auch nicht andere irgendwie noch weiter traumatisieren oder traumatisieren. Deswegen, ich lese das einfach nur für mich selbst. Und ja. So. There's nothing going on, just stuff I can deal with later, some other time. Ich habe selbst schon ein bisschen was mit IT-Stuff Dark Romance getipselt. IT-Stuff und Dark Romance. Wenn ich euch sagen würde, was für Dark Romance ich lese. Dark Romance hat ja schon so einen sehr heftigen Aspekt und einen heftigen Einfluss auf einen. Aber ich lese das auch noch mit dem Genre. Also, ne, das, was ich lese, hat nicht nur Dark Romance als Genre, nein, es hat auch noch Gewalt, Missbrauch, also halt so einen psychologischen Aspekt. Also, ich lese dann schon Hardcore-Stuff, ne? Also wirklich den Hardcore-Stuff, was auf die Psyche geht. Aber dadurch, dass ich mich ja für diese ganzen Prozesse interessiere und auch was daraus, also wie die Personen sich dann auch entwickeln, egal ob es im positiven oder negativen Aspekt ist, ne? Also einfach nur die Entwicklung, die interessiert mich sehr, wie andere Leute das porträtieren. Deswegen lese ich das halt auch total gerne. Auch wenn das halt für viele wahrscheinlich ein verpöntes Thema ist, ne? Aber jeder hat seine eigenen Präferenzen und so. He was transparently avoiding the truth and you stared back at him seriously. An indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Und dann wenn man drin ist in IT, ist das uiuiuiui und dann versetzt man sich in die Person und uiuiuiui. Naja. Eventually, he broke beneath your stare, hanging his head in his hands and groaning. I need to make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff out there that I'm gonna use, so I have to go pick it up. Oh, it would make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring the stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Kuf was going to drive to his mom's house in Nevada. When will you go? Mom thinks it would be best to do it now while I'm still kind of free, but Kuf pouted, giving you an unhappy look, and you could see the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there and for even longer than usual. Why do I have to leave right now when it's our last summer like this? You laughed, not knowing why he was being so difficult about it. You thought it was cute he wanted to stay. You can hack it. I don't want you to go either. You shook your head affectionately. Ich denke, wir sagen einfach, you thought it was cute he wanted to stay. Aber natürlich werden wir wahrscheinlich dann mit ihm zusammenfahren, weil der Moment heißt Drive. You thought it was cute he wanted to stay. It showed how much he appreciated being there and spending time with you. Darf ich das vorlesen, Gezu? Ich weiß nicht, ob ich das vorlesen sollte. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips.
Oh.
Oh! Suddenly his eyebrows jumped and his eyes lit up like a lamp. Ach man, Chat, ne? Meine Nichte ist gerade da und die hat so viel Spaß. Ich würde am liebsten auch mit ihr spielen. You could come with me. What? You should come with me. I mean, I get that the two of us live next door to each other and my mom lives in another state. My trips there are usually to spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time it won't be like that. All I'm gonna do is drive over, stay for a night, and then pack up the car in the morning and turn around again. Most of the time will be spent in the car, so it'd be good to have another person there. Aw, plus you'd have the chance to see my mom again and her place. Maybe we could even find something cool to break at on the way. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in. Aw, Manna, willkommen zurück. Mach besser nicht, aber EN 50173 ist kein Thema. Das ist, wie man die Verkabelung im Serverraum vornehmen sollte. Ah. Okay.
Please?
Oh, guckt euch den mal an, wie süß er ist. Aua. Das muss ich erstmal hier screenshotten. Nein, mach die Augen wieder auf. Ich mache hier alles kaputt. Okay. I just feel like could be fun. Please, could you think about it? I wanna go. A road trip sounds fun. I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, then there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. He grinned from ear to ear, thrilled by the news. He put both his hands on your cheeks, kissing your face all over, having to bend down far to do so, but he didn't mind it a bit. Aww, come. Then he wrapped his arms around your neck, letting out a happy sigh. Ich kann das nicht mehr. Ich kann das nicht mehr mit dem.
I'm so glad.
I'm so glad. This is so great. I'll call my mom and let her know right now. Aw, you spent some time together going over your schedules and making plans for when you could take the trip. You needed to fit it around both of your work schedules, which took a bit of doing, but came together in the end. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. You were excited for the trip, you were content with the plans, you were nervous, you were feeling unsure about everything. You were excited! Bis auf das es den Aspekt der Reiseübelkeit gibt, aber you were excited! A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, and enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house on a footpath near the road waiting for Cove. You were feeling refreshed after a good night's sleep and an early wake-up. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things. All sorts of things. Water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy knowing that it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. Das war jetzt total falsch vorgelesen. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. So. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old at this point, but had served both of them well so far. You just hoped it had enough life left in it to survive a trip as long as the one you were embarking on. Wie weit ist das denn? Also anscheinend so weit, dass man nicht an einem Tag hin zurückfahren kann, oder? wenn die schon über Nacht bleiben müssen. Ich meine, die können natürlich auch im Auto über Nacht bleiben, also so ist das ja nicht, ne? Und Zeka, guten Morgen, wie geht es dir? The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus on and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it. Ready to go? Ja, I'm ready. Für vieles mehr. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
All right.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. Oh, woo! You gave him a high five, you hugged him, you smiled back with a nod. You smiled back with a nod. Diesmal müssen wir ja nicht irgendwie ihn anspringen. Wir haben noch morgens, wir sind noch müde. You smiled back with a nod. Müde bin ich, lurke mal wieder während der Arbeit hier hin. Alles klar, danke für dein Lurk. Und hoffentlich wachst du noch auf. The two of you climbed into the car and buckled up, Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. Of course, it's no problem. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you get cozy in your seat and watch the familiar houses in your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with the odd snippets of song filled the car as you flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There was no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually, he settled on top 40 station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. Is this okay? Yes, you know what I like? Yeah, it works, you nodded. Can I change it? I'd rather have it off. Ja, komm so, ja, das funktioniert schon. He smiled, happy with the answers. Time flew by, and with it, the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. Neither of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Das ist auch wieder so ein Ding. Könnt ihr so die Stille, die Ruhe wirklich ausharren? Also ausharren ist auch schon wieder so ein hartes Wort, aber könnt ihr die aushalten? So, ist das für euch normal? Weil irgendwie, wenn man sich ja wohlfühlt, dann also klar, man redet schon viel, aber es ist auch okay, wenn man dann einfach mal nichts sagt, ne? Ja, nee. Nee, ja. Also ich finde es normal, wenn man dann auch mal nichts sagt. Bedingt, also ja, nein, Mittel. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. But speaking of your mom and trips, remember the time she took us on that crazy drive all across town? He shook his head at the memory, his laughter clear and bright. Oh, I remember. I kept worrying about papers and shoes while you were having a blast. It was an amazing night. I wonder what I was thinking. Sheesh, I was stumped. It was an amazing night. Wir können uns nämlich noch daran erinnern, dass wir dann auf der Rückbank auf Coves Schulter eingeschlafen sind. He smiled quietly to himself, clutching the wheel a little more confidently. With the crinkling of his eyebrows, a look of nostalgia crossed over Cove's features. Mom always knew how to make things memorable. I can't deny that. Silence slowly crept back into the space, both of you thinking back on that night and all the memories you had of it. Your elbow resting on the windowsill, elbow resting on the windowsill, you gazed out a world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed high in the sky, forcing you to adjust the visor overhead to keep it out of your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. Nee, Cove, nee. I want some chips, the salt and vinegar ones. Nee, Cove, nee. That's a great flavor, nee. I don't know how you can eat that. You didn't have a comment on his selection. I'm sorry, I don't know how you can eat that. He huffed impatiently, keeping his eyes on the road. I like them and want to eat them. You shouldn't have a problem with letting me since you don't even like it. Ist das jetzt gut oder schlecht? War das jetzt ernsthaft auch noch böse gemeint, die Auswahl? Ey, das ist doch ein Scherz, oder? Stretching out the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted in your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of the snacks and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. You poured a few chips into his hand. You held the open bag out towards him. Want me to feed them to you? Want me to feed them to you? His eyes widened, the hint of a blush creeping over his cheeks, but he steadfastly continued to face the road. No, that's okay. Aber ich will dich füttern. Hallo. Ah, stimmt. Da war ja was. Wir haben ihn das letzte Mal ja auch gefüttert. Aber da hat er ja Eis von unseren Fingern geschnabuliert. Can you just pour a few into my hand? Yeah, sure. Thanks. Das ist aber sehr gefährlich. Cove held out one outstretched hand. You did your best to have the chips fall into his palm, but some did end up on the floor. After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stuffed the chips safely in the bag again. Hab das Timing vom Red, by the way, geklippt. Weißt du was? Du kannst sogar den Clip auch in des Dingenskirchens. Ich habe auf meinem Discord einen. Ist das ein Kanal? Das dürfte dann ein Kanal sein, ne? Wo man die ganzen Clips rein schicken kann, weil ich habe Links für den Chat hier tatsächlich ausgestellt. Dass es keiner machen kann. Achso, solltest du natürlich nicht im Discord sein, wäre das im Prinzip die Möglichkeit, aber du kannst selbst entscheiden natürlich. So. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. He whipped his hand on his pants absent-mindedly, ich kann dieses Wort nicht, ne? Before gripping the wheel and spinning crumbs all over the place. Oh. You're like a little kid. You laughed at that. How can you eat that much at once? I'm impressed. You had no reaction to that. Wir lachen einfach mal. Wir lachen den Schmerz away. You couldn't stop the amused sound that escaped you, and when Cove raised a questioning eyebrow, you simply shook your head. Das tut weh. The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet traveling along the open road, and you found a little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a Welcome to Nevada sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour at a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on just as the sun began dipping beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Jawohl, so kann man es natürlich auch machen, ne? Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. You took shifts driving throughout the trip. You helped Cove stay alert while he drove. Ich denke tatsächlich, dass es... Also, wir können ja sehen, dass es ein Automatikauto ist, ne? Das heißt, wir können sagen, ja, okay. You took shifts driving through the trip. The route was fairly straightforward, and you had enough practice with driving to feel comfortable doing so. When night eventually fell in a blanket of darkness, the drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled into the parking lot of Kira's apartment building, the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. Und Danny, Hallöchen, wie geht's dir? Grüße in die Arbeit. We made it. We are here. The two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to have actually arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretched your legs. Na, man liest nur, was man will. Psst, psst, psst. Das ist niemals passiert. Okay, das ist niemals passiert. You were relieved to have actually arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretched your legs. Das hatte ich schon. So, you took the stairs up to the building together. After a knock, you were abruptly met by a flash of green hair as Kira opened the door and immediately took her son in her arms.
Cove.
There he is, my gigantischer Baby boy. Die süße Maus. She squeezed him for a moment, and before she could let go, Cove embraced her tightly back. It was a hold that reaffirmed of all the love he had for her as his mom. She stroked the top of his head in response. When his grip finally loosened, she pulled back so she could examine his face. Are you even taller than the last time I saw you? Cove gave you a look and rolled his eyes amusedly as she patted the tops of his shoulders proudly. Examine? Das hört sich so falsch an. You say that every time I'm here. It doesn't even make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Kira simply laughed before letting him go fully and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. Jenny, it's so nice you came along with, and as a bonus, you've both arrived in one piece. Schedule hört sich falscher an. Schedule? Ja, damit man weiß, wie man schreibt, sagt man im Kopf Schedule, aber das heißt Schedule. Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. Kira beamed at you both, and while you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you could see she wasn't going to let you go that easily. So, how was the trip? I admit I was just a pinch worried. We barely made it. I appreciate your concern, but it was alright. You felt the fussing was unnecessary. You let Cove answer that. Warum gibt es so wenig Auswahl nur? Recipe auch so ein Wort. Recipe? Ne, Recipe ist Recipe. Receipt. Receipt ist ein komisches Wort, weil es wird geschrieben Receipt. Ja? Warum ist das P stumm? Warum sagt man nicht Receipt? Receipt. Ja. We barely made it. Nein, wir lassen Cove mal antworten. You let Cove answer that. It was fine, no problems for us. Kira clapped her hands together, the bracelets around her wrists jingling. I'm so proud. I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where did all those smarts come from? Cove ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe I got some from my parents. Die sind so süß. His mom looked up at him deeply, her eyes glistening, as she shook the sentimentality off with the wave of her hand. You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning and any woozies. How do you want to deal with the sleeping arrangements? I've only got my own room and Cove's, though the living room couch isn't bad. Chat, ihr wisst jetzt, was passiert. Jenny can use my bed. I'll just sleep on the floor in the room. It doesn't matter for one night. Kira laughed out loud, startling you both. You raised an eyebrow at her outburst, giving her a quizzical look. Oh yeah, you'll just stay on the floor. You couldn't handle that much back when you were 13 with both your parents in the room. Stimmt, da war ja was. Oh Mann, oh Mann, oh Mann. Da war was, da war was. Cove blushed a dark red and gaped, completely unprepared for her to pull out that embarrassing moment from the past.
Hey!
Mom! You blushed? You laughed it off? He's had a long day. It's cruel to tease the poor boy so late, even if it's true. Yep, she's right. That's totally what you do. You were annoyed. She knows he's sensitive. It was uncalled for. You put a hand on Cove's arm in a show of support. Ich glaube, uns wird das auch unangenehm sein, weil wir waren ja der Grund, warum es ihm unangenehm war, weil wir haben ja gesagt, komm her, so. You blushed. Was it really necessary to talk about this? I'll take the floor. I'll sleep on the couch in the living room. Thank you for letting me have the bed. Ich möchte mal ganz kurz gucken, was passiert, wenn wir hier was anderes machen. Ich meine, wir sind zum Teufel. Wir sind so lange schon ein Paar, so ganz im Ernst. Als ob Eltern nicht wüssten. Mein Gott, you put a hand on Cove's arm in a show of support. He gave you a grateful smile and Kira at the two of you.
Hey!
Mom! She finally let it drop and you tried to move on. Es gibt keine andere Möglichkeit. I'll take the floor. I'll sleep on the couch in the living room. Thank you for letting me have the bed. Ich möchte aber im gleichen Raum schlafen. Ja, komm, wir sagen jetzt einfach mal, ja, danke, dass ich das Bett haben darf. Thank you for letting me have the bed. Cove offered a small smile.
Don't worry about it.
No problem.
So,
Would you be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than out in the open in the living room, even if there is the couch. I'd prefer it if you were on the couch. Yeah, you can sleep there, yeah. Kira jiggled softly, drawing your attention back to her. All funny stuff aside, you need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're setting yourselves up to not get any. I know that sounds really captious, but I'm a mom. I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Jenny? Right? Yes, very responsible. No, we're not. Well, I am, Cove, though. Cove is, though I can't say the same for myself. You simply smiled at him. Maybe you should sleep in the living room after all. Yes. Yes, very responsible. Dass wir das eigentlich jetzt sarkastisch meinen, das wissen nur wir, ne? She gave the two of you a suspicious look and you stood up straighter, trying to prove your point. I leave it at that then, for now. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you can't settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you. Oh Gott. Das wird unangenehm. We'll be good.
Marvelous.
Perfect. Kira clasped her hands together, her bracelets softly tinkling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I better let you prepare for bed. She nodded towards the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the bathroom is first, Jenny, and where you'll be staying the night. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag over your shoulder and followed behind Kira and down the hallway. Kov shuffled along behind you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom had you go to the restroom. The apartment was small but nicely decorated in soft, cool colors with plenty of artwork hanging on the walls to give it character. It was stylish and exactly what you would have expected from someone like Kira. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kira a good night, you headed into the room and found Cove already there. Das Bett ist groß genug für zwei. So, just saying und so, ne? He had changed into his sleepwear for the night as well and set aside his glasses already. Looking around, you found the bedroom to look much the same as the rest of the apartment, but with small ocean elements you were sure Cove must have enjoyed when he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean, though it almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year there, so it made sense that it wasn't especially lived in.
So?
Oh. Kommt es nur mir so vor, oder sieht das ein bisschen aus, als würde der schielen? What do you think? It's pretty nice, huh? Mom always keeps it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. It's a great room. It seriously looks like a hotel room. That's sweet of her. You nodded. Ich würde sagen, that's so sweet of her. Yeah, she's good like that. Oh mein Gott, das sieht ohne Brille so viel erwachsener und älter aus. Chat, denkt ihr das auch? He seemed pleased enough with the response and gave you a small smile before opening the zip on his bag. When you bent. Die Haare sehen lecker aus. Sieht aus wie so ein Minzeis, ne? Oh, ich will Eis essen. When you went back to the room, you jumped in the bed and under the covers just as Cove was shuffling into his sleeping bag on the floor. Cove, du weißt ganz genau, was jetzt passiert. You waited until he was settled in before you flipped off the lights, and a soft glow from outside peeked through the blinds, casting shadows over the floor. You closed your eyes, blocking everything out.
Night.
Night, Jenny. Night, Cove. Sleep well. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night, and you found yourself listening to the sounds of the city outside the window. The noise out there was so different to what you were used to back home, cars zooming past and people out having fun instead of crashing waves and the ocean winds cocooning. Cocoon. Your house in their embrace. Cove shifted around in his sleeping bag, making the fabric crinkle loudly. I've outgrown this thing. I should have checked it earlier, but the trip was kind of short notice. Are you really sure you don't want the bed? Why don't we share? You dropped the topic for the night. Why don't we share? It's big enough. Cove inhaled deeply, the fabric of his sleeping bag crinkling loudly as he fidgeted beneath. I told my mom I was gonna stay on the floor. Cove. He frowned, wondering when that had ever stopped him before. Did you really plan on going through with that? No, you know. He hesitated a little, the silence stretching between you. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. You knew him well. The sleeping bag rustled again, and through the dim light you saw him stand and head towards the bed. He took a deep breath as he ran his hands across the top of the blanket, gathering his nerves as his eyes met yours. Schlaft ihr in einem Bett? Wir schlafen in einem Bett, Sigga. Im Haus seiner Mama. Mit dünnen Wänden. And then he paused, head tilted to the side as if silently asking permission. It's all right. Pass auf, vom Küssen wird man schwanger. Oh oh, da müssten wir ja schon 80 Kinder haben. Mit Cove. Oh oh. Oh oh. You shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled the bedding up and crawled beneath the covers, leaving the two of you close together but not quite touching. He exhaled a heavy breath as he lay down on his side, his head getting comfy on the pillow next to yours. You had a strange feeling in your stomach, like it was doing little somersaults, but it felt good to have him close. He raised his fingers and delicately brushed the tips of your cheeks, drawing a shaky sigh from your lips. His touch was warm and feather-light, making you feel tingly all over. When his eyes met yours again, you found yourself lost in them, the world becoming still and silent around you. Then he froze, his muscles tensing as he closed up like a clam, and his breath hitched in his throat. He attempted to whisper something, but it was completely lost on you. Huh? Huh? With that having to suffice as a warning, Cove jumped out of the bed and crouched down on the floor, his head held in his hands as he took in a few deep, stuttering breaths. Huh? He bolted upright in the bed, staring down at him with a mixture of alarm and bemusement. Are you okay?
I'm always like this.
I thought I'd feel like it did before when we were younger, but it's different now. I'm sorry, Jenny. Really sorry. I'm just so horny. Ich glaube, der ist richtig horny. He panted deeply in and out as though he had just finished running an entire marathon. Marathon? After finally steadying his breath to a normal rhythm, he crawled back into his sleeping bag and huddled down on the floor, his back turned to you. Sorry. Ich weiß nicht, Ja. Zum Glück hört ihr das nicht. Da unten wird gerade gequiekt, gequakt, gequietscht, gequiekt. Also dieses ja von der süßen Maus. You understood, you were disappointed, you were amused, you were not pleased, it was kind of flattering, you felt embarrassed. Ich weiß nicht, also wir können es halt schon verstehen, dass er ist ja sehr häufig von seinen Gefühlen übermannt aber es ist schon traurig. You understood. He usually needed at least one trial run before he could take that kind of step forward. We can always try again another night. You don't need to apologize. Thank you for trying. I'm not surprised that this happened again. You didn't say anything about it. You don't need to apologize. He made a small noise, acknowledging that he had heard you, but said no more. With the event over, you laid back down in bed alone for this night. Man. The next day dawned, bringing with it the sounds of birds chirping happily outside the window. You opened your eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the light as you tried to recall where you were and remembering the unfamiliar sight of Cove's second bedroom. You had woken up on your own. You reached over to turn off the alarm you had set. Cove had nudged you awake. Rise and shine, Jenny. Ah. Cove shook your shoulder, and you groaned dramatically and buried your head beneath your pillow. 5 more minutes.
No way.
No way, we gotta get started. Ja, das klingt nach mir, ne? Also nicht aufstehen wollen. Sitting up in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. You still felt pretty groggy. You felt okay. You were quite refreshed. You felt okay. Considering the long drive the day before and the late night, you were feeling ready to go to get the day started. Though you weren't as perky as him, his energy was infectious. Good morning. You pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the bathroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. He was sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey, can you pull out the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he hadn't even looked up from his task, so you knew he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to his drawers, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. Chat, wisst ihr was? Ich glaube, der Antrag wird nicht passieren. Weder in diesem Moment noch im nächsten. Wenn er sich nicht mal traut, neben uns zu schlafen, ist er, glaube ich, nicht mal ready, was passieren wird, wenn man erstmal verheiratet ist. After a while, it became clear to you that Cove was acting strange whenever you went near him. He was flinching over your presence. It happened a few more times before you couldn't take the awkwardness any longer. You dropped the stuff you were holding down in front of him and raised a questioning eyebrow. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry about last night again. He quietly squeaked the second part of his thought. About not staying in the bed with you. I know you try not to mind or be mad at me, but I wish I didn't have to make you accept me backtracking all the time. He swallowed thickly, struggling to find the right words to explain himself. I do think it felt nice. Really, really. It's just also not bad, but good in an inconvenient way.
I mean...
Ja, ich verstehe schon. Du wirst halt einfach horny. Laying together like that, being so close, it gets too hot, you know? Er wird einfach horny, Leute. Er wird einfach horny. His cheeks flushed with color and he immediately trailed off, his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. I get it. You will stay the whole night next time, right? It was that intense for you, huh? Maybe I'm the one who should apologize. I'm sorry to bother you. Yeah, it's annoying, but it's what I signed up for with you. Do better next time. You nodded in acceptance. Ja, okay, also wir verstehen das halt schon. Er ist halt übermannt, ne? You nodded in acceptance. He let out a fractured chuckle. Thanks, Jenny. If you're alright, then let's get back to packing. I don't want to actually bring you down by not shutting up about it. With it more or less resolved, you went to grab some more items as Cove focused on the box in front of him once again. Oh, hey, look at this. When you turned towards the sound of Cove's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed.
Neat.
Here's something I definitely need to bring. Neat. Craning your head, you got a better glimpse of what he was holding. An old yellowing book. When he opened it up, there were a few dried pressed flowers between the pages. Those had been gifts you'd given to him for his mom's place, something for him to remember by you and to make this time here less lonely. He kept them the whole time. You don't have to hold on to those forever. I was only lending you those. I think I'll take them back now, you joked. It's adorable that you care so much for them. You started to feel emotional. Of course you should take them. You started to feel emotional. Cove looked up at you when you sniffled quietly, seeming concerned. You wiped away the tears that were building in your eyes, feeling a little silly. Sorry. He smiled at you, his face softening. Why would you apologize? It's all right. It's wonderful. Thank you.
It's nice.
These are special. It was important having a piece of you with me when we were apart. I feel the same way. That's why I gave them to you. Cove smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual, but then the expression became more amused. And did you keep the souvenirs I brought back? Of course. Nope, you said jokingly. No, you said honestly. Ich will mal gucken, was passiert, wenn wir das machen. Nope, you said jokingly. He shook his head with a grin. Thanks. Okay. Another hour passed by in silence, and you were happy to see you were making great progress with Cove's room, with only the closet left to sort through. You took a minute to take a mouthful of water from your bottle and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling productive. Cove glanced over at you and paused, putting down the tape gun he had been using to seal up his boxes. You raised an eyebrow. You know, it's really strange to see you sitting in this room. Why? He frowned a little, his eyes distant and his voice quiet when he spoke next.
That's...
During the visits to Mom's, when I was sitting alone in this room, I'd sometimes think about how you weren't here. It was a weird feeling at the time that you just weren't around, and now that you are here in this exact place, I don't know how to explain the feeling. He shrugged it off and smiled a little, as though he'd said enough already and didn't want to risk sounding silly. Life is pretty confusing is all. I didn't know you thought about me when you were away. That's true, life makes no sense. I missed you so much when you were gone. He smiled. I missed you so much when you were gone. His brows crinkled as he looked at you solemnly, his eyes bright with emotion. I missed you too, all the time. It made you feel better to know that somehow, to know that when you were stuck at home missing his company, that he was missing yours too. He looked away satisfied, heading over to the closet and the last of the items to be sorted. Before long, every box, closet and closet? Spricht das eigentlich komisch aus? And drawer had been thoroughly combed through, with the items either neatly packed up in boxes or organized and returned to their proper place. With a sigh of relief, you glanced around the bedroom and the work you had done together.
All right.
We're done. Good job to us. I'm gonna change out of my PJs for the drive. Yeah. When the two of you headed out into the living room, ready to get everything finalized and hit the road, you found Kira in the kitchen pouring a cup of tea. Cove headed towards her, leaning casually against the counter that divided the two spaces. Hey, you didn't have to get up so early.
Come on.
Are you crazy? Of course I have to see you off before you go. You can't sneak away while I'm out cold. She beamed at him and, in all honesty, seemed more than happy to be up and getting ready for the day. Do you want some breakfast? I've got some muesli or eggs and toast. Oh, and some of that fruity cereal you used to love. That's okay, we should really eat on the road. Kira smiled sadly, a little disappointed, but she seemed to understand that your time was running thin. I thought you might say that. In that case, I've packed you some snacks for the road. Oh, die süße Mom.
What do you think?
Even if you don't end up eating them, take it anyway, just in case. You can always feed them to Cliff when you get home. And tell him I said hi. Cove laughed and shook his head, knowing his dad would love nothing more than to polish off whatever food Kira had prepared for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. You really didn't have to. Thank you for the snacks. That's nice of you to organize this for us. It must be a mom thing to know stuff like that. I'll definitely eat whatever you've packed. He smiled quietly at her. That's so nice of you to organize this for us. Not a problem. I wanted to make sure you'd be probably fed at least. She returned your smile with one of her own before putting her cup of tea aside. Well, I'll help you get the car packed.
Sure.
Sure, thanks. The three of you got a move on, taking the boxes from Cove's bedroom and heading down to fill the backseat of the car until there was barely an inch of space left in the back and trunk. With all of you helping, it only took a couple of trips to move everything, and you were done before you knew it. Then it was truly time to say goodbye. You convened back inside the apartment where Kira looked over the two of you with a quiet smile. It was great to see you both. Thank you for coming. She gave each of you a hug, and you felt a little sad that you hadn't been able to spend more time with her. It was good. It was good to see you too, Mom. Cove embraced her in return. The two of them holding onto each other for a few seconds longer. I'll miss you, but I'll visit again soon.
Of course.
You better. Hey, we should make plans for you to visit us too. I'll let you know when it's settled. I'd love that. Kira bundled all the stuff she prepared into a bag and handed them over to you. You took a quick peek at what she had packed. There was fruit, nuts, seeds, hard-boiled eggs, and some veggie sticks.
Cool.
Oh, good to see we've got some fresh food options now. The snacks I brought weren't. Kira shook her head at him and let out a soft laugh as though she wouldn't have expected anything else. I seriously hope you're feeling yourself better than that at home. Yeah, of course. Just not on trips. I can live with that then. She looked over him fondly, her eyes at least focusing on his face and filling with emotion. I'm going to miss you, baby.
Me too.
Me too. Goodbye. Thank you for letting us come. We'll all be together again before you know it. You didn't know what to say. You didn't know what to say. But you tried to manage a pleasant face at least. Kira put an arm around you both, pulling you in tight to her sides for one final squeeze. So,
Bye.
have a safe trip. We will. With a last goodbye, you exited the apartment, though Cove hesitated for a moment in the door, his expression distant. You weren't sure what he was doing, though you tentatively took a step towards him. Is everything okay? Your voice seemed to bring him back to earth, and he shook his head to clear his thoughts, his green hair swaying from side to side.
Come on.
Yeah, let's go. With that, the two of you headed back down to the car, ready to make the long trip home. Soon enough, you were on the wide open road with a car full of Cove's things and only one destination, Sunset Bird, California. So, jetzt, Chat, ich will mal ganz kurz gucken, ob es wirklich im Prinzip Sunset Bird gibt in California. Sunset. Nee. Das wird dann wahrscheinlich. Das ist. Nee, gibt es nicht. Okay. Aber sagen wir einfach mal California. Route Nevada. Also je nachdem, wo die sind, kann das durchaus schon mal so 10 Stunden dauern. Also das war bestimmt so ein, sagen wir so Pi mal Daumen, ein 9 bis 13 Stunden Trip. Das ist schon viel. Das ist schon viel. The drive went as smoothly as could be expected, with the morning slowly creeping into midday as the miles flew by. After a while, you switched places with Cove and took over driving for a couple of hours. The day flew by in a whir of open road and sunshine, and before you knew it, it was early afternoon. By that point, you had already crossed the state line. Cove announced that he planned a little stop on the way home. He was quite pleased with himself as you arrived at the recipes? Ice? The Redwood National Park. Shaded beneath a canopy of enormous redwood trees, you drove along. Nehmen die sich jetzt ein Hotelzimmer? Nehmen die sich jetzt ein Hotelzimmer, Chat? When Cove parked the car, you pushed the door to get out, and the first thing you did was look up. Enormous redwood trees surrounded you on all sides, their massive trunks shooting straight up into a canopy of foliage overhead. There were too many of them to count, stretching on and on as far as you could see. You squinted against the sunlight that was peeking through the leaves and dancing on the path around you. It's great, right? He smiled at you from over the roof of the car before glancing around the place fondly. Remember the trip our families took here that one summer? Absolutely, Cove, weil haben fast Dinge getan. Also, unschuldige Dinge. It was cool going on a journey and seeing the forest in person, even if we didn't stay very long.
So...
And I guess we can stay for even less this time, but oh well. It just seemed like a good time to stop by. Who knows when we'll get another chance. His voice got a little softer at the end. It seemed to be bittersweet for him, being in a place he was so fond of, but not having the time to appreciate it fully. You were pleased to have stopped there. You felt pretty good about being there. You didn't mind either way. You would have preferred not to stop at all. You were pleased to have stopped there. It was a beautiful place to stretch your legs and take in some fresh air. Thanks for bringing me here. There will be more chances in the future, I promise. It's better than taking a break at a gas station. I'll put up with you for the trees. I'll put up with this place for you. You said nothing about that. There will be more chances in the future, I promise. Cove smiled, shoving his hands in his pockets and dipping his head. I'm gonna hold you to that. The two of you walked around for a while, completely dwarfed by the sheer scale of the redwoods. It kind of put your view of yourself and everything in a strange perspective. You took in a lunchful of clean forest air, listening to the sounds of birdsong and the cool breeze rustling through the underbrush, taking advantage of the space to move around freely. However you felt about being there, it was a totally different scene than sitting in that old car for hours and hours. You wrapped an arm around Cove, you took Cove's hand, you felt Cove nudge your hand. You wrapped an arm around Cove. He relaxed into your touch and smiled at you fondly, enjoying the closeness. Being here again, you couldn't help but reminisce on what else had happened during the trip you had taken here all the time ago. There were a lot of things that had reminded you of it recently. You looked over at Cove, who seemed to be lost in the peace of the place, and you wondered if any of it crossed his mind. Smiling at the sight, you thought back on what had been a highlight of that long-gone vacation. You know, we spent the night in the loft together. Elizabeth teased us mercilessly on that trip, remember? Her families were so close. Remember how a bird stole your dad's lunch? I haven't forgotten the classic anklet chat. You know, we spent the night in the loft together. You managed it then. I was stupider then, sorry. You had to crack a smile and left the little debacle from last night behind you again. There was barely enough room for the two of us, but it was fun. Cove chuckled and shook his head at the moment. It was memorable, especially when I got caught up there by my parents in the morning. He laughed, and soon enough you were joining him. It had been pretty embarrassing for him at the time, but you were glad he could look back and laugh about it now. You continued chatting about the trip a little while longer, about the things you had seen and done and even eaten. A lot of the memories Cove had of the trip were similar to your own, but you were also surprised to hear a few other things from his point of view. So much had happened that there was no shortage of things to talk about. The place certainly had a nostalgic quality about it. Hey, Jenny. You looked over at the sound of Cove saying your name to find him smiling at you, seeming relaxed amongst the nature of the park. You have gorgeous eyes. Woher kommt das denn, Cove? The words left his lips and you froze, completely taken aback by the compliment. He blushed, but his gaze remained on you. That's another thing that happened during the trip. You're so sweet. Your eyes are much more beautiful. He put a hand to your forehead, pretending to be to swoon. You found it difficult to hide your blush. I could never forget. You can't just say things like that with no warning. Haben wir damals gesagt, you're so sweet? Aber ich glaube, Komplimente, unangenehm, ne? Also nicht unangenehm in dem Sinne, sondern wenn man es nie konnte, ne? You found it difficult to hide your blush. Dropping your head, you hoped that Cove had noticed, but by the silly grin that was tilting his lips, you knew he had. Your spirits were light as you ambled past information boards and picnic areas. But before long, you decided it was time to bring the short stop to an end and head back to the car to get on the road again. Cove sighed when you finally reached the vehicle, jangling the keys in his hand before unlocking the doors.
Well,
I wish we didn't have to go, but we're going to be responsible and not stay longer than we should. How grown up of you. He smiled slightly, and with that, the two of you jumped into the car, buckled in, and he put it in drive. You were getting closer and closer to town as the sun started settling, though we're still far enough away that the radio stations were unfamiliar to you. Side View. Oh mein Gott, das Seitenprofil von Cove ist ja mal so nice. Das ist ja mal so nice. Cove twisted the dial this way and that before stumbling onto a channel with a song he seemed to like. That was a rare gift from the fates in a sea of static, strange radio jockeys and grating tunes. Aww. His face immediately brightened at the sound of it, and he drummed his fingers along the bottom of the steering wheel happily. Der Blick einfach. Sitting back in his seat, he bobbed his head along in time to the tune. You smiled, you chuckled softly, you shook your head, you sang along, you ignored it, you sang along. Cove raised a pleased eyebrow at your vocalization. Emboldened by you, Cove decided to do a little lip-syncing. Every now and then a part would be stumbled over. And by the end you were both laughing too much to continue. The song ended and Cove reached over to start cycling through the radio stations again. Upon finding nothing tolerable, he flipped the dial off in defeat and leaned back in his seat with a sigh. You rested your head on your hand and stared out the window as the sky darkened, watching the landscape slowly melt into more familiar views. The miles went on, and any energy you had earlier was beginning to drain away. You imagined home and your family. You'd be there together soon. You know, I've spent all these years living in Sunset Bird and taking a few weeks each summer visiting my mom in that second room. That's not gonna happen anymore, not really.
I mean,
I can still see my parents, but the way it all works between us has changed forever. He paused, the silence stretching. A serious look settled on his face, his thoughts far away. I'm excited to be on the brink of real adulthood. Adulthood? I'm worried about how things will be in the future. I feel the same about my parents too. You should lighten up. You said nothing. Ich hab so Hunger. I'm excited to be on the brink of real adulthood. Ja, irgendwie schon, ne? There are so many experiences we've yet to do. Cove's mouth pulled into a tight line, though he gave a small nod. Cove stared straight ahead down the long, long road. The path looked like it never ended from where you were, but that wasn't true. Eventually, he found a few more words to say.
I'm so glad.
I think it's good we were able to do this trip without any parents or chaperones. It was just us. We did it all. I don't know, I feel a little more independent now, a little more ready for what's ahead. Right? I felt ready for a while now. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready. You didn't respond to his conclusion. Right. It's like a real first step to be on our own all the time. I'll be here before we know it. Ich kann schon nicht mehr lesen, ne? The topic seemed to wear on Cove, and he made an attempt to find something else to speak on. So I'm kinda sad about getting back. I'm gonna miss having you right there tonight. He cleared his throat quietly, though said nothing more. You smiled to yourself a little at hearing him say something like that out loud. I'm gonna miss it too. And with the feelings confirmed as mutual, the two of you fell into a comfortable silence. The sky outside grew even darker as the hours passed by, the stars blinking on like tiny fireflies painted onto a canvas of blue. The scenery continued transitioning between open roads, industrial areas, and beach towns, becoming increasingly recognizable as time went on. You felt somewhat disconnected from the world around you as you watched it through your window, your tired mind growing hazy. It was a strange, reflective feeling, but peaceful nonetheless. Soon enough, the world to return to you, and you'd find your feet firmly on the ground. It couldn't be helped. The adventure would end, life could continue, but your memories would linger on. Okay. Das war dann der süße Trip der beiden. Und irgendwie, also ich weiß nicht, ihr müsst ihr mir mal sagen, ja. Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das auch so empfindet wie ich, aber ich habe das Gefühl, es geht immer mehr so in die Richtung, dass denen also es wird langsam richtig ernst bei denen und die erleben teilweise Momente, die irgendwie so andeuten, wie es später aussehen könnte. Und die sagen ja auch immer, dass es so richtig schön ist. Wobei Cove natürlich, ja, der musste zurückrudern. Aber vielleicht war das auch vorteilhaft für die Situation bei Mama mit dünnen Wänden. Aber ja, ich bin jetzt so gespannt. Ich kann es jetzt kaum erwarten, bis Donnerstag zu warten, weil, also übermorgen. Für euch wird das dann auch übermorgen passieren, glaube ich. Also wenn das Video hochkommt, 2 Tage später kommt dann auch ganz normal das nächste Video online, was dann in Happiness passiert. Und ich weiß nicht, ob ich das zeitlich hinkriege, aber ich würde dann voll gerne auch direkt den Anfang von Step 4 spielen, aber die dauern halt immer extrem lange, ne? Also teilweise 2,5 bis 3,5 Stunden, wenn ich das mache. Und ich fange schon später an, weil ich halt noch vorher auf die Arbeit muss. Und ich weiß halt auch nicht, wie lange es auf der Arbeit dauert. Ich habe zwar eine Uhrzeit angepeilt, aber kann auch sein, dass ich das nicht schaffe. Ne, Chat, kann sein, dass ich Donnerstag später anfange. Das lasse ich euch aber dann noch wissen, falls ich es nicht schaffen sollte. Und dann wäre halt Step 4 nicht drin. Dann muss man auch noch zu Step 4 eine Woche warten. Oh mein Gott, ey. Mann. Naja, okay. Auf jeden Fall mache ich dann hier das Ende des Parts und sage danke fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüssi.